welcome to Business Morning right here on Channels Television. It's a brand new week, brand new trading day. Hope you're ready to take the markets by storm today. Here are the top stories you should be looking at. Right now, starting with oil, we're seeing oil prices, they're up a lot this morning, over 1% after a steep fall on the previous day, but we're heading for, we did get a weekly drop. That was last week there, but we're seeing oil prices gain about 4% this morning, starting off the week quite strong today, heading back to that $100 per barrel level. That's talking about Brent crude and that's WTI at this point. We're heading to that $100 level, 4.73%, $94.43 a barrel, 4.30% higher. That's what we have for WTI this morning, and definitely giving us direction on what to expect for the oil market. That's for this trading week. Let's see if we can cross $100, but as of Monday, we're already at 97 for Brent. So definitely it's looking like we're going to see that happen. That's for oil prices this week. All right, let's flip over to other parts of the market now. Let's look at, we see OPEC plus ministers. They've agreed to raise oil production quotas by 188,000 barrels per day for July, despite growing concerns over supply disruptions linked to tensions in the Middle East. The decision was reached during a virtual meeting involving key producers, including Saudi Arabia and Russia. However, analysts warning that the ongoing risk around the Strait of Hormuz continue to threaten global supply flows more than output quotas themselves. That's the biggest news there this morning. Coming from the weekend, they did have that meeting on Sunday. And still related to the oil sector now, Nigeria's oil and gas sector recorded a sharp rise. That's in foreign capital inflows in the first quarter of 2026, with investments into the industry jumping more than 283% year on year, according to new data from the National Bureau of Statistics. However, despite the increase, the sector attracted just $460,000 in foreign capital, highlighting its continued struggle to secure significant share of total investments entering the Nigerian economy. Overall capital importation into the country rose nearly 84%, but $10.3 billion during the period under review. All right, let's get a check on how your money performed last week. That's for the trading week, and 0.37% lower. That's for the whole trading week. 242,000 for the all share index, moving farther away from the 250,000 level. I guess we're having, is this a healthy correction, or maybe we'll see if it plays out continuously. Volume, value, and deals traded last week, all in the red, showing that investor activity was lower compared to the previous week. Let's flip over to other parts of the market now. Let's see what played out there. Looking at the sectoral performance, we see for the sectors, all right, let's look at top gainers for the week. Now we see 10% gain. All right, so you know what? We're going to flip over to other parts of this show now. We see the Central Bank of Nigeria. They've introduced tougher foreign exchange regulations, including 100 million naira penalty. That's for banks that process FX transactions without proper documentation. The revised framework contained in the 4th edition of the Foreign Exchange Manual marks the first major updates to the guidelines in nearly a decade, as aimed at improving the transparency and strengthening confidence in Nigeria's foreign exchange market. Under the new rules, authorized dealer banks will also face an additional 10 million naira fine for each undocumented transaction process, as the Apex Bank moves to tighten compliance and market discipline. And now some company news. Now we see MTN Nigeria. They launched Data on Trial, pioneering customer engagement initiative designed to address concerns about data consumption through transparency, education, and open dialogue. The telecom operator says the platform gives customers the opportunity to ask questions, engage experts, and better understand how data is consumed across devices, applications, and digital services. Take a listen.
Data-driven. MTN Nigeria opens its doors to customers, influencers, and industry partners in Lagos for the launch of Data on Trial, a first-of-its-kind public engagement initiative aimed at addressing concerns about data depletion and consumption.
Data on Trial was created from a simple belief. Trust with our customers grows when you are given access to the information, okay, and you are allowed to make up your own mind about it. And we do not build trust by automatically expecting you to accept our explanations without clear evidence of what we are saying.
Staged like a real courtroom, frustrated customers cross-examined for tech giants. In the hot seat are industry experts, breaking down exactly how stealth apps, background updates, and heavy operating systems drain data in real time.
Resolution matters, okay? So this is an example. A 15-second TikTok video on standard definition uses just 2 to 3 megabytes. That same video, if you watch it on HD, we're talking about 15 MB, and in full HD, it could exceed 20 MB.
It wasn't just an MTN affair. Watchdogs from the NCC and FCCPC were in the room, keeping the proceedings transparent and holding the network accountable.
Data can be consumed from multiple points at the same time. So the charging for data slightly varies from what happens. You take value, you hold it, validate where you are going to, release that value. If you consume it, the system goes bad, takes a bit more data, and the same cycle goes on and on.
MTN insists this is not a PR stunt. They claim it's a genuine push for transparency designed to hand power and understanding back to the digital consumer.
Well, this is fundamental to what we do at MTN, the customer experience. And what we're trying to do today is to assure that customer experience, to bring our customers interacting with us very closely, to understand how their data works. So we're going to be running this campaign for the next 6 months. We're going to be running it across the country, where we go to different institutions, different regions, and talk about how your data is used, how you can manage your data.
I believe we have achieved that objective. We've been able to answer those tough questions, and it's not a one-off process. It's something that we're going to continue to do. We're going to continue to engage with our customers, engage with the market.
Following a successful Lagos debut, MTN is taking the Data on Trial campaign nationwide for a 6-month tour.
All right, let's head on to our first conversation now. We have a fresh debate that's emerging over taxation, public health, and the future of Nigeria's manufacturing sector. You know, following the Senate's passage of the sugar-sweetened beverage tax bill, supporters of the tax argue it could help reduce the growing incidence of, diabetes and other non-communicable diseases linked to sugar consumption, while critics insist the timing is wrong, especially as businesses continue to battle inflation, high energy costs, foreign exchange pressures, and weak consumer purchasing power. The debate now raises broader questions about balancing public health objectives with economic growth, investment protection, and industrial sustainability. Well, joining me for this conversation, we have Dr. Muda Yusuf, CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, and he joins me right here in the studio. It's great to have you on the show, sir. Good morning.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you very much.
So, I'm looking at this sugar tax. Current one, that's 10 naira.
10 naira.
That's the
per liter.
Per liter. Yeah. 10 naira per liter, that's the tax.
Yeah.
And that's payable, by the manufacturer.
Yeah.
At this point. And if we look at, so percentage, now they're looking at a new structure, a percentage-based tax on retail prices. So what percentage are you hearing?
Well, there is no specific percentage
So it could be
yet.
10, it could be 20.
It could be 20. And the whole idea is to increase the cost of these non-alcoholic beverages. And the argument here is that these costs are already high. An average soft drink now is between 400 to 500 naira per bottle. This used to be around 300, 200. So costs have gone up between 100%, between 50% to 100%. So if you are talking about wanting to tackle diabetes, it's not about imposing additional burden on consumers. Yes, we can address issues of diabetes.
So the cost, technically, this tax is supposed to take the cost up.
That is the objective.
Right. But
to take the cost up and generate revenue.
Yes. But without the tax increasing, the cost has already
gone up. I mean, all of us are familiar with the inflationary situation in the country.
Right.
The cost of production, the pressure on manufacturers, energy costs, foreign exchange, interest rates, all these logistics costs. These costs are already heavy. And in any case, let me also make this point. Already there's a lot of taxes that are being paid. These companies pay 30% company tax. They pay 7.5% VAT on a whole lot of issues. They already pay 10% per liter on these non-alcoholic beverages. There's 4% development levy on accessible, profits, as a result of the tax reform. All those NIDA tax, police trust fund, theft fund tax, everything has been consolidated now, which is 4% on accessible profit. It is 4% on pre-tax. Then you have, of course, import duty that you pay on a lot of, some of the intermediate products, which ranges between 5% to 15%, depending on the nature. Then you have the 4% FOB. FOB is the total cost of the things that we import, which also has to be paid on practically all the imports that these manufacturers get. Then there's 0.5% ECOWAS levy. So if you have all these taxes, we haven't talked about subnationals, so we haven't talked about NAFDAC, SOM. This is just at federal. So if you are talking about, easing the cost of doing business, and in any case, even the tax reform, the whole objective of the tax reform of Mr. President is to reduce all this pressure of taxation, both on businesses and on consumers. That is the whole essence. If we have that, and we have the kind of situation we have in the country, is it the time for the Senate to be coming up with a bill to increase the cost of non-alcoholic beverages because you want to fight diabetes?
Okay.
I think we believe that there are better ways of dealing with this.
All right, so looking at that 10 naira per liter levy,
yes,
that's on most of these soft drinks.
Yes.
So if we look at that 10 naira now, at the current exchange rate,
yes,
that's less than a cent. You can put that up for me. So 10 naira, that's about 0.007. That's in dollars.
Yeah.
So it's really been diminished so far.
It has been diminished.
That 10 naira.
But Ladi, we are all in this country. Is it even sensitive at this time for anybody to be contemplating an increase in tax? The president was very clear in the process of this tax reform that this is not the time to increase tax. This is the time to ensure that we have better tax administration, better tax compliance. The whole idea is even a complete negation of what the president has been saying. And in any case, if you want to tackle diabetes, is it the best way to tackle it?
Raising taxes.
Yes, raising taxes. Because,
where does the tax go, really? Well, if you're raising tax to
part of
tackle,
the argument,
yes.
Part of the argument of the Senate, or those who are proposing the bill, is that some of the proceeds will be going to the health ministry so that they can use it, to deal with issues of diabetes and all of that. But the bigger issue is that if you are really sincere about tackling diabetes, is it not about addressing issues of lifestyle? Is it not about issues of dieting, about education? We eat a lot of carbohydrates. You are not talking about sensitizing the citizens about how much eba or fufu or pounded yam or rice that they should be taking. Our diet is heavy on carbohydrates. That is where the bulk of these things are coming from.
I hope we don't get a carbohydrate tax, though.
Well, that is the way we are going. Then you have issues about sedentary lifestyle. People are not moving around enough. Then you have issues about urban planning. Because there's a way you plan your city so that people occasionally can decide to ride bicycle to work. That's the way you design your city so that people can decide to walk. Now, if you want to take a walk now around anywhere, the fear of Okada and all of this, we see some people trying to jog here and there. We know the hazards around this. These are fundamental issues that we should be addressing. This is not the time to be imposing additional tax. And in any case, we have the 4% development levy. And the whole idea of the development levy is to consolidate all these pockets of taxes. Everything has been brought under that umbrella. So if there are issues of national priority, it can be brought under that development levy, and they share it. Because already part of the development levy is going to cybersecurity, part of it is going to tertiary education, part of it is going to technology development, part of it is going to NEL fund. That is the whole essence, so that you don't have fragmented pockets of funds here and there. That is why the whole thing has been harmonized. So this idea of the Senate coming up with a different fund they want to set up and imposing the burden of that on consumers and on businesses, it's not right. It's not proper. It's not appropriate.
So looking at currency devaluation so far, do you think there's a relationship between when a local currency has been devalued over a long period of time and the level of tax payable? Is there a relationship there at all?
Well, there may not be any serious relationship. And why I'm saying that is that I just read out the number of taxes. These taxes are percentages. They are not nominal like we have with the 10 naira per litre thing. They are percentages. So as your nominal income increases, the amount of tax you pay increases. All of those things are percentages.
All those other taxes increase?
Yes. And even for this 10 naira per, yes, you may say that over time inflation has had some effect, but the finance ministry has a framework of being flexible in dealing with taxes. They have a framework in dealing with import duty. They have a framework in dealing with excise tax, depending on prevailing circumstances. So we just leave it the way it is. If the executive feels or the finance minister feels that there's a need to adjust, they have that discretion to be able to adjust it. Not to tie the hands of everybody by now putting this in a bill and saying that we should move from what we call specific tax. Because when you give a tax, nominal terms, in terms of the litre, like 10 naira, that's a specific tax. When you make it a percentage, that's ad valorem. Now, even for many of the drinks, like alcoholic wine, they have specific tax of almost 70 naira per litre. They have ad valorem of over 20%. The same thing with whiskey. It has ad valorem of almost 30%, specific tax of almost 80%.
So I guess all the sin taxes
they're already there.
They're there.
Yeah. To now classify poor people that are struggling with bottle of, because for some people, once they have a bottle of this soft drink and they have bread, they are good to go. When you now clamp down on them, because invariably this thing will increase the price of all this.
So there's no other direction. Once we see a particular tax rise, there's no other outlet. They're passing it on to the consumer.
So it will go to the consumer. And in any case, over the last 2 years, demand has dropped. That is what industry statistics is telling us. Because people are also struggling with some basic things. The purchasing power has declined. Demand has dropped. Significantly over the last, because of cost. Soft drinks that people are buying at 300, it is now 500. So even automatically, the prevailing economic situation had diminished the capacity of the average Nigerian to buy these things.
All right,
that's not to diminish the importance of this public health issue, but it is more about sensitization, not about imposing taxation.
Let's imagine, all right, it becomes law. At this point, it's no more the specific tax. What does this mean for jobs?
Well, it has negative implications for jobs. Because if you look at the non-alcoholic space, they have extensive value chain. From the production to the logistics to the retail. Every corner you go, you find these non-alcoholic beverages. So if demand drops, that has implications for those who are in the entire value chain. It has implications for manufacturing capacity utilization. And we are talking about trying to create jobs and all of this. This is not something that is good for job creation. This is a time we should be looking at how we can bring down the cost of doing business, how we can bring down, challenges that people are facing with purchasing power. So it has very adverse implications for jobs across the entire value chain.
So how is it done in developed economies at this point, or our African peers now? How do they handle their own syntax?
Well, I think they do a lot more about sensitization. Some of them go along this line that we have just said. They have specific tax. Some of them perhaps also have this ad valorem. I don't have the full details of that, but there are various, models of dealing with it. But in our own situation here, we consume a lot of carbohydrates for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. Those are bigger issues when it comes to risk factors in diabetes. That is where the emphasis should be. So that is our own position. It's not about clamping down on industrialists or something, to ensure that they now increase the cost of this. In any case, what you can properly even regard as this syntax. I mentioned whiskey, I mentioned alcoholic wines, I mentioned cigarettes. These was already attracting heavy taxes, both in terms of the ad valorem tax and in terms of specific tax. So to a large extent, we're already dealing with those things. So for now, I don't think it's sensitive, in fairness, and with due respect of the Senate, to pass a bill at this time, of all times, that will increase the cost of basic things that ordinary people consume.
I guess a good time would be when consumer demand improves. What would be a good time, really, for this?
Well, I wonder whether if consumer demand improves,
right.
If the poverty
situation,
if the poverty situation increases, if things get better, then we are still struggling to recover from the burden and the costs of the reforms. The president has been concerned about this. That is why it was particular that no tax should, the regime will not going to impose any additional tax. It's about being sensitive to the conditions of the people. We are talking about how to translate the benefits of the reform to welfare impact. That is the stage we are. The government has managed to stabilize the macroeconomic environment, but we are still struggling to connect the stability to welfare, to consolidate, to ensure growth, to improve the welfare of the people. That should be the concern of both the legislature and even the executive. So we are where we are. It has been passed by the Senate. Our appeal is to the House of Reps, because there's need for concurrence of the House of Reps to have a rethink about this and step it down, at least for now, so that at least the citizens and the ordinary people can have a breathing space, where we focus a lot more on the larger issues affecting diabetes and other, non-communicable diseases, by way of ensuring better awareness, better education about what we eat, about lifestyle, and all these things. Those are the things that should engage our attention at this time.
Right. I guess we have a government that doesn't just care about raising revenue. They also care about our health.
Exactly. Of course. Of course.
And it's fantastic.
Of course.
To care about the health of Nigeria.
Yeah, it is fantastic. But we should vote more. We have the 4% development levy. Let us give part of it to the health ministry. Let us reorder even the budgetary allocation to ensure that we invest more in health, we invest more in security, we invest more in education. We have the tax reform. Tax reform is likely to improve the revenue. Economy is growing. We are allowed to see more revenue. Some of the states are making more money. Let them invest a lot more in all these critical areas.
All right.
We'll get more value from that.
So I guess let's all, try to make sure we're healthy.
Exactly.
At this point, so we don't have too many sin taxes.
Exactly.
At this point, thank you so much, Dr. Buddha Yusuf, CEO, Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise. Thank you so much for coming this morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll be looking at Nigeria's electric vehicle market. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. see the future of Nigeria's electric vehicle market is gradually moving from conversation to commercial reality as fuel prices rise and the demand for cleaner, cheaper transportation alternatives, that's increasing. Investors are beginning to look beyond the vehicles themselves to the broader EV ecosystem, from battery technology, charging infrastructure to fleet management, logistics, software solutions, and renewable energy integration. The sector is opening up entirely new investment opportunities across Africa. Major investors are already backing EV startups and mobility companies with countries like Kenya, South Africa, making significant progress. And we see Nigeria there. We see the EV market data. We're seeing an exemption there. The duty used to be about 5% for bringing in an electric vehicle. That's at 0% right now. Joining me to discuss this, we have Mr. Jubril Arugundade, is the CEO, co-founder, Hybrid Motors Nigeria, to help us unpack where the money is flowing right there in the industry. Good morning.
Good morning.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
First off, I drove to work in a petrol car, so I'm struggling right now. How did you get here?
I got here in an hybrid.
Hybrid?
Yes.
So that's petrol and?
That's petrol and EV.
Right.
Driving to the station this morning, I've saved about 40 to 45% of the cost of operation this morning.
And I've spent all of that.
You spent a lot.
I didn't save anything.
You didn't save anything.
Driving here in a petrol car.
Yes.
My life. All right. So looking at the industry now, they say we have over 11 million cars in the country. Yes. And they expect that electric vehicles could get to about 10% of that figure. Right now. Looking at the industry, how attractive is Nigeria's EV market for investment?
Yeah, so the Nigerian EV market is at the beginning stage. We're still at a very early stage. And this is the best time to invest because the industry is receiving a lot of interest from people, especially with the rising cost of petrol and diesel. Also, looking at the cost of money today, people are looking at alternative means to be able to move around. And EV has done this globally. China is leading the way for EV, America, Europe, and all the other countries. So Nigeria, we are positioned to do well in EV, but investment has to be today. Investment in infrastructure to make EV adoption more faster and more reliable, especially here in Nigeria.
Right, and definitely driving around Lagos, I see a couple of electric vehicle cars, hybrid cars, EVs, and all of that on our roads, so far. Some really fine designs.
Yes.
When you see them, you have to actually turn and look at them.
Yes.
But I keep wondering, what is the experience really like?
Driving an EV.
Driving a hybrid or an electric vehicle, what is it really like? What are the downsides to it?
Okay.
Because we know with our regular petrol cars, you have issues, you have a mechanic, next door that can come and help you sort it out. But for me, I'm imagining driving an electric vehicle now, and I'm like, oh, I have this issue. Who's going to fix it for me? Who am I calling? I'm not going to call the same guy I called to fix my petrol car.
Yeah, so for the USP of the EV, looking at how the EV industry is evolving globally, I can make a comparison to the mobile phone era, where we used to use the early stage of mobile phone, where we have the Nokia phones that have very analog screens, and then we have full LED and digital screens for mobile phone. You could see that the same guys that were repairing those phones eventually find a way to start repairing the new ones. So it's the same thing with EV. Automobile is automobile, just the engine that powers it. So for the mechanical engine, over time, of course, because of dominance of petrol, we need to find people, technicians that understand how to repair those mechanical cars. Now, when EV becomes a thing, I'll give China as an example. Right now, about 10 years ago, the sales of EV in the country is around maybe 10 to 30%. But today, over 90% of sales of car in Q1 in 2026 is 90% is EV. That means 90% vehicles running on the road in Q1 in 2026 in China that are EV cars means you need more people to repair those cars. Now, repairing EVs are much more easier and faster than repairing petrol cars. Yeah, because you have electric motors, you don't have mechanical engine. So the component is more electrical, and you need more diagnostic machines, softwares to be able to navigate those vehicles.
Because sorry to cut you there, because I know with petrol cars,
yes,
normally you have maybe when you have electrical issues with the car, you'll say, there's this electrician, that will help you fix it. So does it mean all of that business will be going to the electrical guys now?
Yeah, so the business might go to the electrical guys, but the electrical guys also have to have the knowledge of EV technicalities, because in the EV, it's not just the electrical thing in terms of your radio, your Bluetooth system, your multimedia screens and all of that. It's about what powers the vehicle itself. So there's a battery, there's an electric motor, and there are other components that powers the car. So you need to find new knowledge, and that's what my company, for example, are doing. We're deploying training for about 10,000 Nigerian young people to learn how to repair EV cars. Because as we move towards the new evolution in mobility in Nigeria, EV is a thing. EV will stay. There's no how we can avoid EV. But we need to prepare for EV by infrastructure and also by knowledge. So what we are doing is try to encourage more people to learn how to repair EV early, so that by the time the business becomes booming and becomes the thing, there are technically know-how people that can fix these cars.
So technically, if I'm looking to buy a car right now, and I'm choosing an EV, at this point, I'm taking a big risk, because I might not be able to fix it if there's an issue.
You would relatively, because the EVs that are in the country is still very early stage. We have very few EVs in Nigeria. About 0.5% of the entire car that is purchased in Nigeria today is EV. Most of the EVs are not coming from direct OEMs or direct distributors in Nigeria. They are coming from middleman dealers, people that are buying as one piece, two piece from China to Nigeria and other parts of the world. So at that stage, you can find, some companies that are already investing. My company, as an example, we are investing in infrastructure. For example, we just signed some strategic partnership in May in China to develop an EV manufacturing plant in Nigeria, Lagos and Abuja. And in that plant, we are not just going to be assembling the vehicle and then eventually manufacturing EV cars. Our plan is also to set up after-sales facility all around the country, right? So there are already existing after-sales facilities in Nigeria. All you need is knowledge transfer. Just give them the technicalities that it needs for them to be able to repair the EV cars. So if you are buying an EV car today, I wouldn't say you are I'm taking a risk, but I would say that you are actually saving a lot, because the cost of running a vehicle is the most important thing. And I wanted to say this, as Nigeria is, we use vehicle, but we don't care about the cost of operation. We don't care about the cost of managing a vehicle. I don't think you've ever woken up in the morning and say, how much will it take me to run the car? You just get into your car, get into a gas station, put the fuel, and then you drive. But actually, you have to check the cost before buying the car in the first place, right? If I'm buying a 2026 petrol car today and I'm buying a 2026 EV car, from taking that decision to buy, I've already saved about 40% of my cost.
40% cost?
Yes. Okay. And then over time, also being able to enjoy the vehicle. You can't take away the comfort that comes from getting into an EV car, close the door, and then the entire noise of Lagos shut off.
Wow.
It's the most silent machine when it comes to mobility. So you don't hear the engine say anything, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
So in the end, all those you hear it.
Nothing like that. Nothing like that.
All right, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, there's still a lot of ground to cover with this EV industry. We need to understand where the money is going and where that money should be going. That's for the moment. Do stay with us.
come? With the shortage of brand new aircraft delivery across the world, Emirates decided to go it alone and refurbish over 200 of our existing planes at our own engineering facility. This makes it the largest retrofit program on the planet. For our customers, it means even greater consistency of a world-class product.
We all see the world differently, but our time zones, politics, diplomacy, and sometimes conflict all converge in one place on The World Today. The World Today brings you those headlines from around the world with in-depth discussions that help you understand the world we live in. Don't be in the dark. Catch us weekdays at 5:30 p.m. only on Channels Television.
Out you come. With the shortage of brand new aircraft delivery across the world, Emirates decided to go it alone and refurbish over 200 of our existing planes at our own engineering facility. This makes it the largest retrofit program on the planet. For our customers, it means even greater consistency of a world-class product.
This morning, and we're still unpacking Nigeria's EV market, and I have with me Mr. Jubril Arugundade, is a CEO, co-founder, Hybrid Motors Nigeria, and still with me right here in the studio. Thank you so much for staying on.
Thank you.
So we've covered a lot of ground, so far, but I'm sure we have investors, with cash at hand right now, wondering where to put it in, when it comes to this EV market in Nigeria. Where do you think, which segment gives the fastest ROI?
I think the segment that will give the fastest ROI is the infrastructure segment of the whole EV ecosystem. We're talking about battery swapping stations. We're talking about charging infrastructure.
Battery swapping?
Yeah.
So I have a battery.
Yeah.
And I'm swapping it.
Yeah, because there are different kinds of EV cars.
Right.
There are two-wheelers, there are three-wheelers, and there are four-wheelers. For the two-wheelers and three-wheelers, your batteries are compact enough that you can swap them, you can remove and replace.
Just the way I change my remote battery?
Yes,
right.
Yes. But for a four-wheeler, the battery are embedded in the vehicle. You need a very big and technical battery swapping system, which is quite very expensive to be able to do that. But for the two-wheelers and the three-wheelers, you can swap the battery. And you can set up a battery swap station anywhere. You can invest in that. That is viable. That will bring fast return on investment. Also, we are deploying, my company, we're deploying the EV charging infrastructure in Nigeria for Lagos and Abuja. We signed another strategic partnership last month as well in China to develop about 110 charging stations. And I'm not talking about small charging stations. I'm talking about mega charging stations. So we're going to be the same way you have petrol stations everywhere. You should have EV stations everywhere. So that alone would optimize the adoption of EV in Nigeria, because people would now understand that if I have an EV car, on my way to work, after dropping me at work, my driver can just go to the charging station and charge. Within 45 to 50 minutes, can charge the vehicle and come back. We're talking about mega charging stations. So if you invest in that, that would be a good investment. Then, of course, financing. For EV adoption to really be a thing and to really survive the projection that we've given EV in Nigeria, we need to heavily finance the procurement of EV. You cannot leave EV progress to the hands of consumer buying EVs as one-off, like retail sale. There needs to be heavy deployment of finance for people to be able to buy EV cars using the finance instrument that we have. The commercial bank today will be very difficult for people to do that because of the interest rates, but that's also something we're doing. So as a company, we're not looking at EV business as a one-off from, let's say, manufacturing as an example, or from the dealership, or from the charging station infrastructure, and of course the financing to buy. We are creating the entire ecosystem as a company. And for early investors that are interested in this business, they should be looking for companies like us that are very forward-thinking about the EV business. Because a lot of people are going into the business today for quick money. And you can make quick money by selling one car. But you can make an institutional money by creating the infrastructure and the structure that the business needs. And that's exactly what we're doing.
Right. And, technically, when you go back to, the regular petrol car industry, at this point, we have, stayed a consumer, nation when it comes to, most of these cars. And I feel like there's a risk, even with the EVs, would remain a consumer nation.
Yes.
At this point. How do we change that?
Yeah, so the problem is not just even about that. The problem now is that if countries like China, that over time have over 1 billion population, is moving away from from petrol to EV, can you imagine where their petrol cars will go? Their petrol cars will come to Africa, will come to Nigeria, because we're a consuming nation. And that should not happen. We should create an ecosystem for our mobility and automobile system, or our mobility or automobile industry, to actually strive by assembling vehicles in Nigeria, made in Nigerian cars. Actually having a full CKD factory to manufacture cars in Nigeria is not difficult. And for every country that has done that, the government has played a big role in making sure that the infrastructure needed for that industry to strive comes. Now, the automobile industry in Nigeria is capable to take care of 10% of our GDP. This industry is also capable to employ at least 25% of our unemployed young people. So we have an industry that is viable. We just need to invest in the right place.
Right. All right. I guess that's a good place to anchor it. And I'm hoping at some point, as a country, we start to produce some of these cars, and the investment stays in Nigeria and is not taking out
in couple of months.
The country.
In couple of months, our assembly factories here in Lagos and Abuja will be up and running. And the vehicles, we just developed a homegrown electric vehicle brand called Aisley. And that brand would be assembled here in Nigeria by Nigerians, and will also be used by Nigerians.
Fantastic. That's a good place to anchor it. Thank you so much, Mr. Jubril Arugundade, CEO, co-founder at Hybrid Motors Nigeria. Thank you for coming on the show
Thank
today.
you so much.
So much to unpack, and I'm sure we'll unpack them later on as we go on in different episodes. All right, we'll find out what's happening in the global economy in a moment.
Morning, everyone around the world. It's morning here in Lagos, Nigeria, and the second week of June. So now let's find out some of the biggest expectations of the week's global economic calendar. And starting first with the German factory orders, which fell more than expected in April, adding to concerns that Europe's largest economy could contract in the second quarter due to the Iran war and surge in energy costs. Now, according to Germany's Statistics Office, the latest factory orders month-on-month report for April dropped by 3.8%, missing market expectation of 2% decline. Now, this follows a prior jump in March, which was revised to about a plus 4.5%, and that was largely driven by front-loaded inventory build. Now, the downturn highlights escalating economic pressures for Europe's largest economy. Now, for Tuesday, we're expecting that China's trade data report for last month will be released by the General Administrations of Customs in China. Now, economists project that the export growth will strengthen to roughly 15% year-on-year in dollar terms, and that will be driven by front-loaded overseas orders to preempt supply chain disruptions, alongside sustained demand for AI and semiconductor components. Now, let's move on to Wednesday. For Wednesday, the U.S. May inflation data report is expected, with headline CPI forecast to creep up to 3.9% year-on-year, up from 3.8%. Also on Wednesday, China's May inflation report will be released, and that's a forecast at plus 1.4% year-on-year, and that's crucial for assessing domestic demand. Also expected on Wednesday is the Bank of Canada, which will be having its monetary policy rate and is expected to hold its interest rate steady at 2.25%. Now, it has maintained that benchmark overnight rate steady at that level since October last year and is expected to continue to hold this through the much of this year, balancing competing risks like inflation and global economic uncertainty. Now, so that's for Wednesday. Now, on Thursday, June the 11th, the European Central Bank, that's the ECB, is expected to raise its key interest rates at its upcoming Governing Council meeting, with market pricing in a near 99% probability of a 25 basis point hike. Now, if enacted, this will increase the key deposit facility rates to 2.25% and will be the ECB's first rate hike since 2023. Also expected on Thursday is the U.S. Producer Price Index, that's the PPI report, and the weekly initial jobless claims, which are both scheduled to be released by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So market surveys expect an initial claims to hover around 225,000 and the PPI final demand to register around 0.75%. So in reactions, the bond yields are expected to climb further and put additional pressure on tech growth and growth stocks if inflation numbers come in hot. Now, finally, for Friday, the United Kingdom's, that's UK's April GDP data is expected to be released with a 3-month average forecast to rise 0.8%, up from 0.6%. Now, analysts are looking to see if April's monthly figure can keep up with the 0.3% month-on-month expansion recorded in March. Investors will also focus on much awaited, much talked about Elon Musk's SpaceX IPO debut on Friday. Now, that public offer is expected to be one of the largest in Wall Street history and could be the market's biggest test yet for the AI valuation narratives. Now, let's talk about the global news, what's happening right at the moment as we speak. Now, the International Monetary Fund's Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, says the world needs to build foundations that can withstand shocks that have become more frequent. Now, the IMF chief issued the sobering warning to the global financial community, saying that the world must abandon any expectation of a return to long-term stability and instead build economies capable of handling relentless recurring crises. Georgieva, who has been at the helm of affairs of the Washington-based lender since 2019, has been through the COVID pandemic, the war in Ukraine, the tariffs turmoil, and now the conflict in the Middle East. Meanwhile, the IMF will update its outlook for the global economy next month after downgrading its growth projection for the year in April amid the war in the Middle East, which marks its 100 days since it began on February the 28th. And that conflict continues to drive substantial volatility across all asset classes in every region of the world. Now let's move over to Indonesia, where the country has released its latest data today, confirming that the country's foreign exchange reserves fell by another $1.3 billion last month, landing at $144.9 billion. Now, this marks the 5th consecutive monthly decline, solidifying the longest continuous drain on the country's financial war chest since 2018. And that's when rising U.S. interest rates triggered a similar emerging market capital flight. Now, the drop highlights the extreme cost of defending a domestic currency in today's macroeconomic environment, bringing in a few critical pressures on the forefront. Now, still within the Asia region, Asia's key thermal coal benchmark has skyrocketed to a 2-year high today, triggered by new export restrictions from Indonesia, and that's the world's largest exporter of power plant coal. Now, the spike is being driven by a massive sudden regulatory overhaul from Jakarta. Now, this comes as the country's president, Prabowo Subianto's administration on Monday last week mandated that all exports of coal, crude oil, crude palm oil, and ferrous alloys must be funneled and reported through a newly established centralized state-owned entity. Now, still within Asia, South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung has chosen the country's Minister for Small and Mid-sized Businesses, Startups, Han Seong-suk, to be the country's Prime Minister. And this comes as President Lee marks his first year with a vow to find new growth engines for the country. Han, who has previously served as chief executive of South Korea's internet giant Naver, is expected to lead the country's AI transformation. Now, if approved by Parliament, Han will become South Korea's first female minister in 20 years, elevating a former technology executive to one of the nation's highest political posts. Now, let's talk about aviation. Now, the aviation industry's landmark pledge to be net zero by 2050 will probably not, it's not now to be achieved. This is according to the Director General of a global airlines body, IATA, Willie Walsh. Now, in a speech to delegates at the annual IATA summit in Rio de Janeiro, was said that Quotas, that is Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation, which is a global market-based measure established by the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, was being undermined by government inaction, while annual production of sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, would only reach 2.4 million tons, or 0.8% of aviation fuel needs this year. Now, the goal is a 65% reduction, or that's about some 650 million tons by 2050. Now, the collective goal to eliminate net carbon emissions by 65%, like I said, is about was declared by global airlines only 5 years ago in 2021, with similar pledges made by national aviation industry leaders and governments, including in the US, in the UK, in 2020. That's global news for Monday. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, Anita, thank you so much for that. And, for the markets now, we see the local ROAS, after a big drop of over 3% last week, we're kicking off this week in the red, about 0.33% down, looking at investing.com. Stocks getting attention, FCMB, Abbey Mortgage Bank, Jais Bank, Access Holdings are getting attention right there. We see gold, that's down, trading today. But Bitcoin, on the flip side, that's up. We get more details on Business Incorporated at 1:30. I'm Ladi Williams from the team right here at Channels HQ. It's bye for now.